Hey everyone, and welcome to another G News update. Well, today is King's birthday honours, and what a day! Well, congratulations to everybody that really did deserve to be honoured today. It's a good thing to honour the achievements of people from a wide range of areas across New Zealand who have contributed to a better world and a better way of living for all of us. However, a lot of us on social media today have been a bit disturbed that some honours have been handed out to people just for serving in Parliament and just doing their job as part of a government. And it's not clear what it is exactly that we are honouring. Some have said that what we're honouring when it comes to Ruth Richardson is we're honouring cruelty and wealth inequality because, as you may recall, Ruth Richardson delivered the mother of all budgets in 1991 under a Bolger government, and the consequences of that budget were severe and long-lasting, and when it came to suffering and the welfare state and having enough to live on, there are countless stories all across New Zealand society of mothers in particular that actually had to work two jobs. Ruth Richardson's quite idealistic Milton Friedman, Frederick Hayek ideological fixations had gone too far. And so the word cruelty and suffering and wealth inequality are attached to the legacy of Ruth Richardson. So it's a bit of a surprise. A bit of a shock for everyone today to see Christopher Luxon honouring this kind of thing. It's really the kind of thing that you would think wouldn't be honoured because it actually has done a great deal of harm. The counter-argument is that the Fiscal Responsibility Act, that was Vicky that just walked by in the background. She'll probably cut back the other way in a minute. The Fiscal Responsibility Act was one of the legacies, and this is a part of the semi-constitutional set of three laws that the neoliberals set up in the 1990s and in 1989. The first of them was the 1989 Reserve Bank Act, and then there was the Fiscal Responsibility Act under Ruth Richardson, and then there was, I think it's the Public Finances Act. But those three pieces of legislation, they governed how the Treasury operates, and they governed the relationship between the government and Treasury and budgeting and reporting. And you can look at this as a kind of a straitjacket that's been applied to normalise neoliberalism in New Zealand, the idea that we need to keep the debt down below an average in the OECD, that austerity is a good idea, that we continue to practice these kind of laws that have been imposed by those that said that there was a commitment problem to neoliberalism, and the way to do it was to shape these laws. Now, the Regulatory Standards Bill is really just one of those missing pieces that the ACT Party have been trying to implement now ever since, because they didn't get this last piece in there where you can look at all of the legislation and regulations we have that keep us safe and that give us balance, and you can tilt them out of balance. You can use words like good, but by good what you mean is what libertarian values say, and to most of us those are wrong or evil or out of balance. They're the kind of thing that give us more wealth inequality, more child poverty. So having said all of that, basically what we're looking at the moment is the ACT Party probably having far too much influence over Christopher Luxon in the decision making. We've also got a situation where National are at this very precarious place in its first term of government where, according to Thomas Coughlan, the margin in the most recent Talbot poll is only 1% between Labour and National, and that was before the budget, which and also before everyone had really got their head round the big pay equity theft of $12.8 billion from hardworking women. So we're seeing a repeat of this attack, like a war on the poor in New Zealand, and we're seeing a Prime Minister that's actually all behind making people suffer, honouring the people that do make them suffer, propping it all up. And, it's a pretty long way from any kind of Christianity, really. So people who do believe in fairness and justice and a fair go and looking after those that are vulnerable in our society, who also happen to be right-wing conservatives, that they probably do have disturbed sleep. They're probably not 100% good with what's going on, but it's like a nagging thing, the idea that you could have been wrong. And people don't like to be wrong or admit their mistakes, but that's what's going on. I mean, it's pretty clear that the whole of society is starting to see that you've really put in place a government here that's way out of whack with New Zealand values overall, and greed and selfishness and individualism. Those kind of values, they ultimately are corrosive if they're not balanced out. So people who profess to have a faith in Christianity, I don't think, you can actually hold that faith fully and at the same time vote for someone like Christopher Luxon or the ACT and in good conscience. So that's just my opinion, but this is what we're seeing. This is also the first podcast that I've just decided to use a second camera on, because I'm going to increasingly do podcasts in June, just so you know. So we're going to see a lot more of me talking to others rather than me just talking by myself here, which is probably going to be a bit of a relief for all of you. The other thing I wanted to mention today was Stephen Joyce. Stephen Joyce was a person that got honoured today, and I think most of the world does remember Stephen Joyce from the flying dildo episode. And I mean, only in New Zealand, wasn't it? It made international comedy programs all around the world. But I think Stephen Joyce, really what we're honouring with Stephen Joyce today is manipulation, because I believe he did throw a dead cat into the middle of a election with Bill English and Jacinda Ardern fighting for the 2017 election. Stephen Joyce threw a dead cat knowing that he was wrong, claiming there was an $11 billion hole in a budget prepared by Grant Robertson. So that was a kind of a dishonest act. And to really honour dishonesty or manipulation because it was deliberate, all he had to do was deny it. But it ended up the case, as you may recall, that just about every economist in New Zealand called out Stephen Joyce and said, no, there's no way you are correct. And they went through the numbers and they disagreed with everything that Joyce was saying. In the end, Bill English didn't win because of MMP, and we saw Stephen Joyce cry off like a big baby because, there was no pathway for him to rise any further. And since then, he's been clipping the ticket as a consultant, whether it was the $1 million to consult at the Waikato University over the medical school there with the chair of the Reserve Bank of New Zealand kind of getting involved in all of that. And we've also seen him take a part in clipping the ticket on infrastructure and setting up an infrastructure organization in the background. But these are sort of cozy, sort of revolving doors that, the old, I'll give you a contract and you can charge us like a wounded bull. But at the same time, we'll actually implement austerity for everybody else while ingratiating our friends. So I think this all smacks of that kind of thing today. And a lot of people out there are saying, well, why do we have such a low standard for the King's Honours these days? It really detracts from all of the valid and credible people who have worked very hard and done good things for society to actually have these kind of decisions creeping in which don't look right at all and just aren't right. So here's what Christopher Luxon said. He's going on about how every single one of these decisions was the right one, and it really did prove something about, the worth of these individuals and their actions on society here. But it didn't. It's clearly, again, the case of Luxon kind of applying things over the top, saying things in public that don't square up. And so national voters must have a great deal of difficulty actually justifying, their continued support for a party that is led this way and for these kind of values that we're seeing on display. At the same time, I'd just like to say that I've been recently listening to Frank Zappa, and he had a song in 1966, believe it or not, called Trouble Every Day, I think. And there's a lyric in there that goes along the lines of, there's no way to delay the trouble happening every day. It's something like that. And he talks about black and white discrimination across the nation and all the stupid things that are on television that they're trying to say. And that hasn't changed, has it? So it's interesting to know that Frank Zappa was dealing with this crap on his television in 1966. And, we've got this situation in New Zealand now, which is a bit similar. In his day, there were riots on the street, huge polarization, possibly over the Vietnam War. And, society was divided in the same kind of way that David Seymour was trying to divide New Zealand society with kind of terrible memes. One of the memes he put out recently suggested that Te Pāti Māori wouldn't know what a budget was if they saw one. And, it's absolutely insulting and demeaning. And some people called it racist to actually talk like that about Te Pāti Māori. So it's incredibly disrespectful to the Indigenous people. And every day we see some kind of attack on the treaty, some kind of attack by the small portion of people who have got control and captured New Zealand at the top. We've got Ruth Richardson telling us that she didn't flinch from her duty. We've got the same kind of thing happening with this bold as brass finance minister today, Nicola Willis, implementing a steal, of $12.8 billion of pay equity from hardworking women and punching down like Ruth Richardson. So they're trying to make this kind of value a value we should all cherish and adopt, hurting and harming those who are in need in this country. At the same time, we've got a book coming out and a film coming out anytime from Jacinda. So that's really got the backs up of all of the people at the Post who absolutely wanted to see more regret and, some kind of simpering and admissions that it was all a big failure by Jacinda Ardern. Which has told us all very much about the Post and where it comes from and what values it's adopted as a newspaper, a commercial organisation that's trying to make a profit out of the very people that might honour Ruth Richardson, for example. So, the decks are stacked against us all. What else have we got going on today? Well, we've got the Regulatory Standards Bill and the submissions that are due by the 23rd of June. If you didn't know, we all put in submissions on the original documentation in January, but now it's the actual submissions for the bill as drafted, and so get those submissions in again if you can before the 23rd of June. We're also going to see a reopening of the case being made by the Privileges Committee, which is, in my view, very racist against Te Pāti Māori for doing the haka with Hana. And so we'll see that all open up on the 6th of June, which is only a few days away. Tomorrow morning on breakfast, we'll see just exactly whether the whole issue of Chris Bishop drinking in public, blaring off, making a fool of himself at the Aotearoa Music Awards is news in New Zealand, or whether it's just been looked at and thought, well, actually it's a guy, he's drunk, but he's National MP, therefore there's a different rule for him than there would be, say, for someone like Tory Whānau or someone like Kiri Allen, who, that would be news, but it wouldn't be news if it's a guy like Chris Bishop. So we'll just see how TVNZ Breakfast treats this, whether they apply the race card or the gender card here and give it a pass, or whether they say to Christopher Luxon, look, mate, you surely just can't let this one fly. I mean, where's your consistency? What kind of leader are you? Are you this ballsless? And just start really putting the heat on about leadership that's really lacking in New Zealand under Luxon, who had nothing to add to what Bishop had said. And, Bishop was denying that he had said half the things that he was reported to have said by people standing next to him. So, Yeah, man, what a mess. And, we just carry on, and these people are not made accountable. So I guess we're not holding out too much hope for TVNZ breakfast to do its job. We're also probably likely to be entering into polling period now. So I would expect us to see some kind of fairly, positive poll for the National Party coming out of Kiwi Blog's David Farah at Courier. Possibly about 3% higher than it probably really is in reality. Just that kind of margin for error, just manipulating around in the middle there. I would expect to see the government still in charge, even if it thieves billions of dollars off hardworking New Zealanders as if nobody cared in this country. So I kind of think we're going to see more manipulation in the polls this week. Very little about Talbot Mills that counted that. We're going to see a TVNZ poll and a RNZ poll come up soon as well. And they may tell a closer story, or even one where the government is out of power. So keep tuned for the next 2 weeks just to see what happens in the polling space. It's probably about time that all this came together. And that's really about it. So I'll just leave it there today. Have a fantastic holiday, and I hope to talk again with you tomorrow. And we'll pick up some of these topics. But Ruth Richardson, Stephen Joyce, the polls, Bishop, and whether Bishop gets off, these are all things that aren't over yet. Talk to you again soon. Have a great evening.